I'm someone who's obsessed with productivity to a point where it's almost unhealthy. And I've done every kind of, not every kind, I've done a lot of stuff that other people would have heard of. I've read Atomic Habits several times. I've read Deep Work several times. So Good They Can. Like, I've read all the Cal Newport stuff and most of the major famous things. I'd love Rex for other productivity books that are like off the beaten path if you have any of those. But I've tried a lot of things to stay productive because I'm just someone who wants to get cool things done in the world. And nothing has worked that well until something recently. And there's some philosophy that goes with it and also some just like a little technical implementation. It's like a cool kind of programming thing. So I'll jump right into that, but I also just wanted to say that I'm like a perfectionist, and a lot of things in the past for me have worked briefly for a time, and then I don't know if it's like my ADHD or perfectionism are both kicking in. Like all of a sudden, sorry, that's my haptic motor going crazy in the back of my phone because it's all the wires are frayed and short circuiting. But if what was I saying? Damn it. Yeah, I don't know if it's my ADHD or perfectionism, but I try something, it works great for a week or two, and then randomly out of the blue, like it just stops working for me. So there's totally a chance this happens with this. But I don't know, I've felt it really work in a way different than the other things where I like actively enjoyed it. I enjoy using it, and it's more, I don't know, it's different than anything else I've tried, like Pomodoro and stuff. And I'll get into why that stuff also maybe didn't work for me. But here's the basic concept. I want to be a lot more specific about planning what I'm doing. So let me just go to my note. Ignore anything that's like weird or embarrassing in here because I don't like sometimes I forget to remove random things like this. Quitting my Vim addiction is just an idea for a video. I'll just write an idea down in every random buffer I have open. So what I've been doing is really embracing the planning is better than execution. Like 5 minutes in planning is 20 minutes in execution. And I found that so much more useful because in the past I've had, and I still like, I have so much focus and desire to get stuff done. I have so much drive, but I kind of lack structure. And that's what costs 80% time waste. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm so excited to work. I'm so excited to get stuff done. Let me just like get on my computer and do stuff and see what happens, you know? And that see what happens, that lack of structure is just the killer. It seems like you're going to be so productive because you want to be so productive. But without structure of some kind, you're so much more likely to fall, in the worst case, into like YouTube or social media or something that just wastes time basically completely. And in the best case, you're going to end up working on something like your workflow or just a project you don't really want to work on or answering emails or whatever. So it's the structure that's just helped immensely. That's one component of it. And what I do is like before I start a project, I just like spend 5 minutes. I don't set a timer or anything because that's like a little bit too much friction for me. But I just think really hard about what do I want to actually get done in this session, and I like really chunk it up. And then once I have chunks, I can sometimes chunk those down further, but sometimes I don't. And when I have that list, I don't immediately like, all right, I'm gonna jump in. What I try to do is look at the list for like just 2 minutes and like not touch my keyboard, no writing allowed, just like stare at it and like analyze it further. And I can usually squeeze out a couple more really good insights. And this way, when I hit work with all that ambition and drive, I know exactly what I'm doing, and the chances I get pulled into YouTube or something else are much lower. And I also like have a very kind of distraction-free environment, so hopefully nothing embarrassing loaded up here. We'll ignore any of those comments. But you can see kind of, if I boot up YouTube, I have like uBlock for specific elements. So you can see my YouTube is very boring, which helps a lot. And then I also, to a lesser extent, for other websites. Like I really should do it for Reddit and stuff like that. I'll just boot right up and have content. But with this system, I've been staying off those social media so much more than I ever had before. My problem with all this block certain elements and websites and like focus modes they're great. You know, like the Raycast focus mode you can do, it's like do this, and then you go to anything, like let's try to go to Reddit, and it replaces it with this, and then you can like snooze for 5 minutes or whatever. That was nice. I was trying to do that for a while, but this is another one of those things that didn't work because it didn't solve the problem at the source, which is lack of planning. So it would make it really annoying and frictionful to go to YouTube or whatever. But because I just didn't really have a plan and I was kind of floating around randomly, sometimes I'd be like, oh, I'll just go, see what's going on YouTube. Maybe there's some kind of inspiration there. And that friction of going to YouTube is so easy to override when you have no plans. You just kind of, even though like I have all these blockers and stuff, with my like software engineering knowledge, it's pretty trivial to like go in and just change the blocker filters or turn off my uBlock or whatever. And if you even do that once, your whole focus blocker thing setup just crumbles to dust, because now you're practicing. Like the habit of YouTube watching has now just evolved into the slightly different habit of turning off my ad blocker so that I can watch YouTube. So it's like a very well-meaning idea, and it can work when it's combined with other things, but the planning is so much more powerful. And then I'll show you what else I've been doing. So it's suggested in Deep Work, and I think So Good They Can't Ignore You, that you should keep track of the time you spend doing the things you want to do. And just as like a measurable, I'm improving month after month, because sometimes having a metric to shoot for is nice. Like just think of like the GitHub commit graph. That's pretty meaningless, because there's also a whole problem here in this philosophy that having like a metric to shoot for that's different than the actual outcome you want is bad, because then you'll kind of overfit to the curve, right? Just think of the GitHub issues. Like it's great to encourage people to code more, but then you start overfitting to the curve. Like what are they solving at a fundamental level? What people are really trying to get is to look like they're doing work, because GitHub is kind of a social media for employment. So you start to get a few people that are a little bit like dodgy, like myself, doing things like writing scripts to automate filling in your commit graph, or just pushing like random commits at the end of the day that don't mean anything, which I think a lot of you are probably guilty of. Maybe some of you are smart enough to realize that's all meaningless, but I think a lot of you would do that kind of thing. And maybe if not, like, if you haven't done it, maybe you just heard what I said and thought, oh wow, I should do that. But no, you shouldn't do that. The problem is like overfitting to solve the metric, when the metric is not, that's not the problem. You want to be good at coding. You don't want to be good at filling your GitHub commit graph. So what metric I picked is just time spent doing the, like the good, what's it called? Completely lost my articulation there. I kind of spent it all in one area and then it kind of petered out later. That's unfortunate. Now I'm going to just be using one syllable words for the rest of the video. But no, I guess the metric I picked was time, and that's a solid metric because it's a little harder to metagame. If I want to maximize the amount of time I spent working on a project or a real thing, like what am I going to do? Just fake it? Like there's no one is seeing how much time I spend on this. It's like just for me, and it'll just lose all legitimacy if I try to fake it. And yeah, there's no point. And it's hard to overfit to maximizing time, because you're not like shooting for external validation. There's no real like tricks to like, oh, I warped into another dimension and worked where time was like 3 times as fast, or I pulled an all-nighter to rack. I'm not gonna do that. So I think it's harder to overfit to. It's a great metric, and I wanted something trackable just to keep me accountable. So I did research with my Genius network that I have on the channel, and I got a bunch of recommendations for time tracking software. A lot of them look cool, and a lot of them are very involved, and you can go crazy. You can like track all your applications and editors and stuff and what you're doing there. My problem with those is, like, first of all, I was intimidated away. I was like, I don't want to spend ages setting up a perfect, because I'm an over optimizer. I know I'm at first a little intimidated by something, but once I get over that little hump, that little inertia, then like I'm gonna waste so much time. And so I wanted something simple I could do myself. And I found a program called Time Warrior, Time W. And all this does, it's like a very simple program, is it allows you to like start a session and stop a session. And I actually don't even remember the syntax for it, but because I never use it from the command line. I have a script, and I'll show you in a sec. But yeah, basically it lets you like just start and stop timers and name them. And that's all it does. It's like very simple. I don't even actually have a way to visualize the time I've logged yet, because I don't care yet. I'll care maybe in a month, just out of curiosity to see that I'm improving, but the data I have right now is not hugely important. But I'll show you, so I can do in tmux, which is kind of my poor man's D menu, but I think it works basically in the same way as far as I understand it. So I do leader and then T, and I get this little picker of different categories that I've set up. And I might add more in the future, but say that I'm working on programming. I do that, and then my tmux status bar reflects that. It doesn't say how much time I've logged, it doesn't say anything like that. The reason for that is I don't want like moving things anywhere on my screen that I'm not controlling. That kind of like bothers me on a subconscious, subliminal level. I don't know. But beyond that, I just didn't know how to do it, and that's, I would say, 90% more of the reason. But yeah, that's basically the idea. And then if I want to do something else, like say that I'm like, okay, I really want to go read my YouTube comments or check on the GitHub forum that I have, then I can switch to wasted, which may seem a little bit harsh because I'm getting really good information out of both of those things, but it's ultimately not as much what I want to work on, and I want to like really keep track and be cognizant of the time I spend ingesting other information. I want to like cocoon and spend all my time making my board game project really good. So saying wasted just gives me, it gives me more, I don't know, it's like a manual step I have to do that puts the word in my mind more so than like I'm just kind of like blindly blanking out what I'm doing with my actions. All right, I'm clicking on like ignore, warning, like remove ad blocker. You know, there's no like messaging to me there that I'm not just like solving a little puzzle, whereas this I'm like, all right, I have to manually type in the word wasted and hit enter. And now like this status is like racking up time. And that just in the back of my mind keeps me like so much more in shape. And then there's also like just a stop status for when I close my computer, which I don't have manual yet, and that's a little bit of an issue, and I'll talk about that in a second too when I show off. Let's see if I have, I think time.sh is the script, and let's make that only. So you can see I just define the categories. It's very simple. And then all I do is pass this to skim, which is a little fuzzy picker, and then do some like little customizations at the margin and the color so it looks better. And then if stop is selected, then I time W stop and I just remove the status. If start is selected, I time W start that status and yeah, set the tmux status. It's literally like so simple. It's this could be thrown together in 2 minutes. It took me a lot longer because I'm like such a mouth breather noob, but yeah, it's you don't need crazy time tracking software to do anything like this. And why do I love this setup so much? And actually right now I'm gonna start logging video. This is a perfect example, a perfect segue. I just missed a bunch of time where I'm doing something productive and recording a video. And the perfectionist in me in the past has hated that. Whenever like my Pomodoro, I go over a little bit, or like, oh, I'm about to finish something, but my break just hit, or anything like that, any kind of structure falls apart, or oh, I missed one day in my git commit graph. It's all ruined. It's all lost and hopeless. The thing with this is I've just been steamrolling through it in the hope that I'm messing up a lot, right? I'll constantly close my computer and not stop the time and it racks up a bunch of time. Or I forget to change statuses and it says wasted and I've been programming on my project for a long time, or vice versa, which is worse. And yeah, I've made some big mistakes, but every time I think like, it doesn't matter so much because I'm not, the statistic isn't the end goal, right? And it's more about just being mindful about tracking what time I'm spending. Even if there's like a bunch of errors earlier on, I think if I keep doing this and I keep doing it manually, it'll become so habitual that those errors will go down as I get really used to changing statuses and stuff. And then the earlier ones will just kind of fade into the background blur of data that's like all more accurate. And another thing I love about this is it's not in the background. It's not time tracking that's like data where like you spent all this time, but you do whatever you want and then it racks up a nice visualization for you at the end of the month. And I feel like that is just data it wouldn't be that useful to me. I have this problem with like Strava running too, where like as soon as I mess up, and bear with me if you're an inside dweller, as soon as I like record something slightly wrong or like don't unpause a run or like do anything like that, I'm like, oh, my data's all fucked. Like I can't draw any meaningful conclusions from this anymore. Fuck it. Like my whole system fell apart. I don't care anymore. But this is like, it doesn't matter because the system doesn't have to be good. I don't really care about the data, to be honest. It's more about the manual act of control space T. All right, I'm like, every time I change an activity, it's just like another message to me. The more I do it, the more it becomes ingrained, the more I'm used to it, the more I like keep using this more and more, and then the data follows. It's more about the initial habit, and then the data will follow. So that's how I've set that up. I also, yeah, I just want to say in regards to Pomodoro and the other stuff, I see a lot of people doing that, especially on Study With Me streams. And there's like, yeah, there's a bunch of YouTubers that'll do that. There's nothing wrong with Pomodoro. I used it in the past, and I think it can definitely provide a certain kind of structure that's good, but that wasn't what I was lacking. For me, it wasn't like, oh, I stopped the video status and I'm still recording. See, and I don't care. It doesn't bother me. That was yet another chance to practice. Anyway, it doesn't matter that, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. I don't lack the motivation to do work. I lack the structure to do work. And Pomodoro is kind of based on getting you to do work. I think the structure is like work, not work, rather than work on specific things. And not to say you can't combine Pomodoro with planning, like I was talking about at the beginning of the video, but it's just different. It's kind of, it's not what I struggle with at all. It's not a problem for me to just stay focused for a long time. It's just my focus, I am focusing on doing work, but it's kind of drifting around to different things, whereas this just keeps it on one thing rather than keeps me staying at my desk. Another problem I found with Pomodoro is I'm always like in the flow state, and then I get pulled out by a break, and I'm like, okay, why am I even doing this, you know? And then like, but I get Pomodoro, like, okay, you're pulled out, and instead of taking like a phone break, right, the most basic Pomodoro tweak meta is like you sit there and you think about what you're working on. But even that is just like sometimes, okay, that's great, that's nice, it forces mindfulness, but sometimes I'm just like, I want to just keep chugging forward, and I can take a manual thinking break. I know to do that. And so, yeah, no hate to Pomodoro. I just somewhat feel like that's not what helped me. And there's still other things I want to do with this. I don't think it's perfect, but I think that now that I have the mentality of practicing, like the productivity is a skill. It's not, okay, this one system fixes all of my problems. It's, here's the start to what will fix all of my productivity problems. Here is the thing that I can practice, that I can put productivity focus towards, that'll improve productivity. It's like Vim, but for everything. And that's why I'm so optimistic about it. It's worked so well so far, even though I'm constantly messing it up. It's just like the perfectionism is gone, and I don't mind anymore because I know it's in the spirit of eventual perfectionism. So yeah, that's about it. I'd like to talk more about stuff like this in the future. Like maybe having a calendar eventually would be nice, but I have a really hard time with calendars for some reason. That sounds like I don't know, so insert derogatory term for my intelligence, but I just have a hard time with like their UI, and it sounds like so OCD and problematic, but I guess I'm mentally probably, I have some weird stuff going on, even if I can present a very socially normal front. I think calendars, I have a really hard time keeping track of dates or caring about keeping track of dates, if that makes sense. Like, I've never had a point where I haven't just been able to kind of remember a commitment. Like, I've forgotten about commitments before, and that's really awkward, but it's not to a point where, like, I need a calendar to keep track of anything. It just makes me feel so, like, verbose and time-wasty when I'm pouring all this time into organizing, like, all these little boxes and colors and check marks, and, like, it's fucking Tuesday at 6 p.m., you know, boom, done. And I remember that. Once in a while I forget it, and that's really awkward, and then I'm like, oh, maybe I should have a calendar. Maybe I'm not superior like I think I am. Because there have been a couple times, and yeah, so calendar maybe in the future, but if anyone can agree with me on calendars there, like that would be pretty awesome for my self-esteem, I think. Yeah, that's just what I think about that. To-do lists though are great. I just find that like the attaching dates to things is just so much more friction. And like I have Conway's doomsday algorithm memorized. I can tell you any day of the week given the numerical value. Like I have very strong mathematical understanding of dates, and like I can do mod math and whatnot in my head really quickly, a lot more than people that use calendars can. And it still pisses me off the friction that a calendar introduces to me. But you're probably just thinking right now, this kid has no commitments. And to be fair, you are kind of right. In a work environment, academia environment, there would probably be more than I can just commit to memory. But as of right now, I find that calendars are just verbose, and they just make me uncomfortable at some deep visceral workflow level. I'm probably autistic in some. I've never been tested, but I just like I don't feel any of the social. I don't know. Like I feel like I have no problem talking to people or like picking up on social cues or whatever. But maybe it's a massive psyop and I actually do. That would be crazy if like I think I'm very normal, but everyone else is like, fuck, that guy is weird, and I'm just my autism is so strong that I can never realize that. That would be crazy. Can you imagine that? Realistically, that's not the case because I can see all the evidence. Okay, I'm just talking about random stuff at this point. I just got to start streaming if I want to do things like this. The point of the video is over. Hopefully you got something about it, and I'll catch you next time.